The night I met God did not begin with thunder, miracles, or glowing lights in the sky. It began with silence. It was one of those nights when the whole world felt tired. The streets outside my small room were empty. A weak yellow streetlight flickered near the window, and the sound of distant dogs barking came and went like waves in the dark. My phone battery had died hours ago. The internet was gone because of the rain. Even the clock on the wall seemed slower than usual. I sat alone on the floor beside my bed, staring at nothing. For many years, I had asked people the same question. How can someone meet God? Some people said prayer was enough. Some said only holy people could experience God. Some said God lives inside every heart. Others laughed and told me nobody could ever meet God. But that night, my heart was different. I was not searching for proof. I was searching for peace. My life had become noisy. Not outside, inside. Too many worries, too many comparisons, too many regrets. I was tired of pretending to be strong. I was tired of trying to impress people. I was tired of chasing things that disappeared after a few moments of happiness. Money came and went. Friends changed. Dreams changed. Even my own mind changed every day. But somewhere deep inside me was a quiet desire. I wanted something eternal, something real, something that could not be taken away. I wanted to know if God was truly near. The rain became heavier. I walked toward the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and looked outside the window. The city lights looked blurry because of the rain on the glass. For some reason, I whispered softly, God, if you are real, how can I meet you? Nothing happened. No voice, no sign, only rain. I smiled sadly at myself. Maybe I expected too much. Maybe people only imagine these things. I returned to my room and lay on the bed. But sleep refused to come. My mind continued asking questions. Why do people search for God? Why do rich people still feel empty? Why do people pray only during pain? Why are human hearts never fully satisfied? I closed my eyes. Then suddenly, a strange calm entered the room. Not fear, not excitement, just calm. The air itself felt peaceful. I slowly opened my eyes. At first, nothing looked unusual. The same room, the same dim light, the same rain outside. But then I noticed someone sitting quietly on the chair near the window. I froze. A man sat there wearing simple white clothes, not shining, not glowing, just peaceful. His eyes were gentle. The kind of eyes that looked directly into your soul without making you afraid. I wanted to speak, but could not. The man smiled softly. You asked how to meet God, he said. His voice sounded calm like slow water flowing in a river. I swallowed nervously. Who are you? He looked toward the rain. A friend, he answered. My heart beat faster. The room felt strangely warm. I sat up slowly. Are you God? The man smiled again. If I tell you immediately, your mind will become busy. Tonight is not for fear. Tonight is for understanding. I did not know why, but I trusted him, not because of logic, because of peace. For the first time in many years, my thoughts became quiet. The man pointed toward the window. "Tell me," he asked, "why do humans search for God?" I thought for a moment. "Because they are suffering." "Yes," he said. "And why are they suffering?" "Because life is difficult." He shook his head gently. "Life is difficult for everyone, yet some people remain peaceful. The deepest suffering comes when the soul becomes disconnected from truth." I listened carefully. "The human heart," he continued, "was not created only for food, money, success, or entertainment. Those things are temporary. The soul always searches for something higher. That search is the beginning of meeting God." I looked down quietly. He was speaking about my life. The man stood up slowly and walked toward my bookshelf. Dust covered many books. He touched them gently. "Humans fill their minds every day," he said, "but forget to fill their souls." I asked softly, "How do we fill the soul?" "With truth, with silence, with gratitude, with kindness, with prayer, with honesty, with love." The rain outside became softer. The room felt timeless. I asked him another question. "Why can't people see God clearly?" He looked at me with deep compassion. "Because most people are too distracted." His words entered my heart immediately. Humans wake up and immediately look at screens. They compare their lives with others. They chase attention. They become angry quickly. They judge quickly. They rarely sit in silence. And then they wonder why they cannot feel God. I lowered my head. "That was true," he continued. "God speaks softly. But the world has become very loud." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he asked me a strange question. "When was the last time you sat quietly and thanked God for breathing?" I could not answer. "When was the last time you looked at the sky without rushing?" Again, no answer. "When was the last time you helped someone without expecting anything in return?" I stared at the floor. The man's voice remained gentle. "Meeting God does not begin in the sky. It begins in the heart." I felt tears forming in my eyes, not because I was sad, because something inside me was waking up. The man walked toward the kitchen. I followed him. He picked up the glass of water I had left earlier. "Do you see this water?" he asked. "Yes." "If the glass is dirty, the water becomes unclear. The human heart is the same. Anger, jealousy, greed, pride, dishonesty, and hatred make the soul cloudy. God is always near, but people cannot feel His presence clearly because their hearts are full of noise." I whispered softly, "How do we clean the heart?" He looked at me kindly. "By becoming truthful." "Truthful?" "Yes, honest with yourself, honest with others, honest with God." The man placed the glass back on the table. "Many people pray with their mouths," he said, "but their hearts remain far away. God does not only listen to words, God listens to sincerity." The room became silent again. I noticed the rain had completely stopped. Only the sound of dripping water remained. The man looked outside the window. "Do you know one of the simplest ways to feel close to God?" I shook my head. "Learn to slow down." I frowned slightly. "That sounds too simple." He smiled. "Truth is usually simple." He continued speaking. "People hurry through life so quickly that they stop noticing miracles. A sunrise becomes ordinary. A heartbeat becomes ordinary. Breathing becomes ordinary. Family becomes ordinary. But nothing is ordinary. Existence itself is a gift. His words felt different from motivational speeches. They felt alive. I asked him, why do humans fear being alone? Because silence reveals what the heart is hiding. That answer shook me. The man sat back on the chair. Most people do not fear silence because silence is empty. They fear silence because silence is honest. I sat near him. The room now felt brighter, even though the light had not changed. Can anyone meet God? I asked. Yes. Even ordinary people? There are no ordinary souls. I looked at him carefully. Then why do some people never feel close to God? Because they search only during emergencies. I remained quiet. People remember God during sickness, heartbreak, fear, and failure. But closeness to God grows daily, like a relationship. You cannot ignore someone for years and suddenly expect deep connection in one night. I thought about all the times I prayed only when I was desperate. The man continued. Meeting God is not about escaping life. It is about learning to see God within life. He pointed toward the window again. In rain, in kindness, in forgiveness, in patience, in love, in truth, in quiet moments, in the beauty of existence itself. I asked softly. Have you always known God? The man looked thoughtful. Every soul begins close to God. But humans forget. Why do we forget? Because the world constantly teaches people to worship temporary things. His voice became deeper. People worship status. Beauty, approval, money, success, attention, pleasure. But all temporary things eventually disappear. That is why so many hearts remain restless. I suddenly remembered many moments from my own life. Moments when I believed success would finally make me happy. Moments when I thought more followers, more money, or more praise would remove emptiness. But the emptiness always returned. The man noticed my expression. You see now, he said softly. I nodded slowly. He continued. The soul does not become full through possession. The soul becomes full through connection. Connection with God? Yes. The silence between us felt beautiful, not awkward, peaceful. Then I asked something that had troubled me for years. If God loves people, why is there suffering? The man looked at me for a long moment. Then he answered quietly, suffering wakes sleeping souls. I frowned. That sounds painful. It is painful. But pain often opens hearts that comfort keeps closed. I remembered difficult moments in my life. Failures, losses, loneliness, heartbreak. Those moments had forced me to ask deeper questions. The man continued. When life becomes easy, humans often become distracted. But suffering reminds people that they are fragile. It reminds them to seek meaning beyond temporary pleasures, I whispered. So pain can bring people closer to God. Yes, if they allow it to soften them instead of hardening them. The clock on the wall ticked softly. It felt like time itself had slowed down. The man suddenly asked me another question. What do you think God wants from humans? I thought carefully. Prayer? Prayer matters, he said, but many people misunderstand prayer. What do you mean? Prayer is not only asking for things. Prayer is connection. His eyes became very calm. True prayer changes the person who prays. I listened closely. When humans pray sincerely, their hearts slowly become softer. They become more patient, more forgiving, more grateful, more aware. That is one way they begin meeting God. I asked him, "Do long prayers matter more?" The man smiled. A sincere whisper can reach heaven more deeply than empty speeches. His answer stayed inside me. The room felt sacred now, not because of candles or rituals, because of truth. I asked him another question. How can someone know if they are close to God? He answered immediately. They begin becoming kinder. I blinked. That simple? Yes, he continued. A person close to God becomes slower to hate, slower to judge, slower to lie, slower to harm, and quicker to love, quicker to forgive, quicker to help, quicker to appreciate life. His voice sounded almost like music. I realized something important. This conversation was not about religion alone. It was about becoming truly human. The man stood again and walked toward the window. The clouds outside were slowly moving away. Moonlight began entering the room. "Look outside," he said. I stood beside him. The wet streets reflected silver light. Everything looked calm. Humans spend so much time searching for extraordinary miracles, he said, that they miss the miracle of being alive. The moonlight touched his face softly. Every breath is evidence of mercy. Every sunrise is another chance. Every heartbeat is a gift. I suddenly felt emotional again, not because of sadness, because gratitude was slowly filling my chest. The man looked at me carefully. "You are beginning to understand." I asked quietly, "Can people meet God through nature?" "Yes." "How?" Nature slows the mind. It reminds humans that they are part of something larger than themselves. He smiled gently. That is why people feel peaceful near oceans, mountains, forests, rain, and stars. The soul remembers its creator when surrounded by creation. I remembered childhood nights when I stared at stars for hours. Back then, life felt simpler. The man continued. Children often feel closer to God because their hearts are less complicated. That sentence stayed with me. Less complicated. Adults overthink everything. Children simply experience life. I asked softly, "Can anyone become close to God again even after making many mistakes?" The man looked directly into my eyes. "There is no soul beyond mercy." Tears rolled down my face. He continued. Humans believe their mistakes make them unworthy. But sincere repentance opens doors that pride keeps closed. I wiped my eyes quietly. The man spoke gently. God is not searching for perfect people. God is searching for honest hearts. For several minutes, we sat in silence, but the silence felt meaningful, peaceful, healing. Then I asked something I never asked anyone before. What is the biggest obstacle between humans and God? The man answered softly. Ego. I looked confused. He explained. When people become obsessed with themselves, they stop listening. Ego makes humans believe they are the center of everything. Humility opens the heart again. I asked, what does humility really mean? It means understanding that life itself is a gift. The moonlight became brighter. The room no longer felt small. It felt infinite somehow. The man continued, humility is not weakness, it is clarity. It is realizing that no human controls tomorrow. It is remembering that every person is fragile and temporary. I thought about how much energy humans spend pretending to be important, pretending to know everything, pretending to be stronger than they truly are. The man suddenly smiled. Do you know one beautiful way to feel closer to God every day? What? Help people quietly. I looked surprised. That brings someone closer to God. Yes, he continued. When humans help others sincerely, their hearts expand. Selfishness shrinks the soul. Compassion opens it. I remembered moments when helping someone unexpectedly made me feel peaceful. The man nodded as if hearing my thoughts. Love is one of the languages of God. The room became silent again. Outside, the clouds had fully disappeared. Stars slowly appeared in the night sky. The man looked upward. Humans are never truly alone, he whispered. I followed his gaze. The stars looked endless. Why do humans fear death so much? I asked. Because most people never truly learn how to live. His answer surprised me. He continued, people postpone joy, postpone peace, postpone gratitude, postpone love. They live mechanically, then suddenly time disappears. I felt chills. The man looked at me compassionately. A soul close to God does not fear death the same way, because deep inside, it knows life is larger than the body. I whispered, do you believe heaven is real? He smiled softly. The human heart was created with longing for eternity for a reason. His answer felt mysterious, yet comforting. The night continued. But strangely, I no longer felt tired. I felt awake in a deeper way. The man suddenly asked me, what do you think happiness is? I thought carefully. Peace? He nodded slowly. Real happiness is inner peace, and inner peace grows when the soul aligns with truth. I asked him, why do people chase things that do not satisfy them? Because humans confuse pleasure with peace. That sentence entered my heart deeply. Pleasure is temporary, he continued. Peace is deeper. Pleasure depends on circumstances. Peace comes from connection with God. The stars outside looked brighter now. The man's voice became softer. Some people own everything and still feel empty. Some people own very little and feel deeply peaceful. The difference is not possessions. The difference is the condition of the soul. I sat quietly, absorbing every word. The man looked at me kindly. You have spent years searching outside yourself for answers, he said. I nodded slowly. But many answers appear only in stillness, I asked him. Why do humans avoid stillness? Because stillness reveals truth. Again, his answer felt simple yet powerful. He continued. In silence, humans finally hear their own hearts. Their fears, their regrets, their hopes, their conscience, and sometimes God. The room felt completely peaceful now. Even the air seemed lighter. I suddenly realized something. For hours, I had not once checked my phone. I had not once worried about work. I had not once compared myself to anyone. For the first time in years, my mind felt free. The man smiled as if he understood. The modern world constantly steals attention, he said. But attention is sacred. Whatever humans constantly focus on shapes their souls. I asked him quietly, how can someone protect their soul? Be careful what you feed your mind daily, he continued. Words matter, thoughts matter, habits matter, conversations matter. Everything slowly shapes the heart. I thought about how much negativity people consume every day. Anger, fear, comparison, noise. The man looked serious now. A peaceful soul is not created accidentally. It is created intentionally. I nodded slowly. He continued. Wake up with gratitude. Spend time in prayer. Speak honestly. Forgive quickly. Help others. Spend time in nature. Protect your mind from constant negativity. Sit in silence sometimes. These small actions slowly bring humans closer to God. His words felt practical, simple, real. Not complicated philosophy, just truth. I suddenly asked him something unexpected. Does God ever stop loving people? The man's eyes became deeply compassionate. Humans walk away from God many times, but God continues calling them back through life itself. How? Through beauty, through conscience, through kindness, through pain, through love, through moments of awakening. The stars outside looked almost magical now. The man stood silently for a moment. Then he said something I will never forget. Every human soul quietly searches for home. God is that home. My chest tightened with emotion. I did not fully understand why, but those words felt true. Very true. I asked him softly, why do humans feel empty even after achieving success? Because success cannot replace spiritual connection, he continued. Humans often climb mountains only to realize they were searching for peace, not applause. I remembered many successful people who still looked unhappy. The man sat beside me again. Never build your entire identity on temporary things, he said. What happens if those things disappear? I looked down quietly. He continued gently. Build your inner life. That is where true strength grows. The room now felt almost holy. I asked him, can someone meet God without religion? The man thought carefully before answering. Religion can guide people beautifully when practiced with sincerity and wisdom. But rituals without transformation become empty. The purpose is not only to perform actions. The purpose is to awaken the heart. I listened carefully. A truly spiritual person becomes more loving, not more arrogant. His words felt important. Many people argue about God, he continued, while forgetting to practice compassion. The night air became cooler. I wrapped a blanket around myself. The man looked at me kindly. You are not meeting God through fear tonight, he said. You are meeting God through understanding. That sentence changed something inside me. All my life, I thought spirituality was mostly about fear. Fear of mistakes, fear of judgment. But tonight felt different. Tonight felt like returning home. I asked him another question. What happens when people truly trust God? They stop carrying the entire universe on their shoulders. I smiled softly. That was exactly how life often felt. Heavy, the man continued. Trusting God does not mean life becomes easy. It means the heart stops drowning in constant fear. The moonlight slowly moved across the floor. Time continued passing quietly. I asked him, "How can someone hear God?" He answered softly, "God is often heard through conscience, peace, wisdom, love, and truth." He paused. But humans must become quiet enough to listen. Again, silence. But now silence felt beautiful. The man suddenly asked me, "What do you think people regret most near the end of life?" I thought for a moment. Not achieving enough? He shook his head gently. Most regret not loving enough. Not appreciating enough. Not being present enough. Not living deeply enough. His voice became softer. Life is shorter than humans imagine. The words settled heavily in my heart. I looked at the stars again. The universe suddenly felt both huge and intimate at the same time. The man smiled softly. "You are thinking deeply now." I nodded. "I feel different. You are becoming awake." The room remained peaceful. Then I asked quietly, "Will humans ever fully understand God?" The man looked toward the sky. A drop of water cannot fully contain the ocean, but it can experience the ocean. I sat quietly after hearing that. Some truths were too large for complete explanation, yet somehow the heart still recognized them. The man continued, "Humans do not need to understand every mystery to experience love, peace, beauty, and connection." I suddenly realized something. Throughout the entire night, the man had not tried to impress me. He spoke simply, clearly, lovingly, and maybe that was why his words felt powerful. Truth rarely needs decoration. The man looked at me carefully. "Do you know why many people struggle to feel close to God?" I shook my head. Because they try to meet God while remaining disconnected from their own hearts. I frowned slightly. What does that mean? It means they distract themselves constantly. They avoid reflection. They suppress emotions. They ignore conscience. But healing begins when humans become honest within themselves. The night grew quieter. Even the city outside seemed asleep. I asked softly, "What is the first step toward God?" The man answered immediately, "Sincerity. Nothing more, nothing less. Sincere prayer, sincere repentance, sincere gratitude, sincere love, sincere effort to become better." His eyes reflected deep peace. I whispered, "That sounds simple." "It is simple. Humans complicate it." We both smiled softly. The man suddenly asked me to close my eyes. I obeyed. "Take a slow breath," he said. I breathed deeply. "Now listen carefully." I listened. At first, I heard nothing. Then slowly, I noticed tiny sounds. Wind, distant dripping water, my heartbeat, my breathing. The quiet hum of existence itself. The man spoke softly. Most humans live their entire lives without truly paying attention. I opened my eyes. The room looked different somehow, more alive. The man smiled. When attention becomes sacred, life becomes sacred. I felt tears again. Not painful tears, peaceful tears. The kind that cleanse the soul. The man looked at me compassionately. "You have carried many worries," he said. I nodded slowly. "But tonight, you are learning something important." "What?" "You were never meant to carry life alone." My chest tightened. Something inside me finally relaxed. For years, I tried controlling everything. Future, success, opinions, outcomes. But control only made me exhausted. The man continued. "Surrender is not weakness, it is trust," I whispered. "Trust in God?" "Yes." The room became quiet again. Then the man suddenly stood. "It is almost morning," he said softly. I looked outside. The sky was slowly becoming lighter. A faint blue color appeared beyond the buildings. I felt panic suddenly. "Wait," I said quickly. "Please don't leave yet." The man smiled gently. I never truly leave sincere hearts. I stood up. I still have so many questions. "You always will," he said kindly. "Life itself is part of the journey." The early morning air entered through the slightly open window. Birds began singing softly somewhere far away. The man looked toward the sunrise. "One more thing," he said. I listened carefully. "If you truly want to meet God, do not spend your life only searching outside yourself." He placed his hand gently over his heart. "Learn to sit quietly. Learn to love deeply. Learn to forgive. Learn to be grateful. Learn to serve others. Learn to pray sincerely. Learn to notice beauty. Learn to protect peace. And slowly, you will realize God was never far away." The sky grew brighter. Golden light slowly entered the room. I felt overwhelmed with emotion. "Who are you really?" I whispered. The man looked at me with infinite kindness. Then he answered softly, a reminder. For one brief moment, the room became completely silent. A silence beyond ordinary silence. A silence full of peace. Then I blinked. The chair near the window was empty. The man was gone. I looked around the room quickly. No sound, no footsteps, only morning light. I stood frozen. Part of me wondered if I had dreamed everything. But deep inside, I knew something real had happened. Something deeper than imagination. I walked toward the window. The city was waking up, people rushing. Cars moving, another normal day beginning. But I no longer felt the same. The emptiness inside me had changed, not completely gone, but transformed into peace. For the first time in years, my mind was quiet. I looked at the sunrise. Its golden light touched the buildings gently, and suddenly I understood. Meeting God was never only about visions or miracles. It was about awakening, about learning to see differently, about becoming deeply alive. That morning, I did something unusual. I left my phone untouched. I made tea slowly. I listened to birds singing. I thanked God for the morning. And while drinking tea beside the window, I noticed something beautiful. Nothing extraordinary had changed outside. But everything felt different inside. The days after that night slowly changed my life. Not dramatically, quietly. I began waking up earlier. Not to rush, but to sit in silence for a few minutes. Sometimes I prayed. Sometimes I simply breathed and felt grateful. At first, my mind remained restless. Thoughts jumped everywhere. Worries returned. But slowly something softened inside me. I started noticing beauty more often. The sky after rain, children laughing, the smell of tea, the calm feeling of evening wind. Life stopped feeling like a race. I also began speaking more honestly. Not brutally, kindly honest. I apologized faster, forgave faster, judged people less, listened more, and strangely, these small changes brought deep peace. I remembered the man's words. A peaceful soul is created intentionally. One evening, while walking through a crowded market, I saw an old man struggling to carry heavy bags. Normally, I might have walked past quickly, but something inside me stopped. I helped him carry the bags across the road. The old man smiled warmly. "May God bless you," he said. His simple words touched me deeply. That night, I understood something important. Meeting God is not always dramatic. Sometimes it happens quietly through kindness, through compassion, through presence. Weeks passed, then months. Life still had problems. Bills, stress, unexpected disappointments. Nothing became magically perfect. But my relationship with difficulty changed. I no longer felt completely alone inside suffering. During painful moments, I remembered the man's words. You were never meant to carry life alone. One night, months later, I sat beneath the stars again. The same question returned softly. How can someone meet God? This time, the answer felt different. Not theoretical. Alive. You meet God when your heart becomes sincere. You meet God when you stop running from silence. You meet God when gratitude becomes deeper than complaint. You meet God when love becomes more important than ego. You meet God when you help people quietly. You meet God when you protect peace inside yourself. You meet God when you notice the miracle of existence. You meet God when prayer becomes honest. You meet God when you slow down enough to truly live. I looked at the stars for a long time. The universe no longer felt empty. It felt alive, connected, meaningful. Then I closed my eyes and whispered softly, "Thank you." Not for money, not for success, not for comfort, just for life, just for another breath, just for another chance to become better. The wind moved gently around me. And in that quiet moment, I felt something impossible to fully explain. Not a voice, not a vision, just deep peace. The kind of peace that tells the soul it is finally close to home. Years later, people sometimes ask me strange questions. Did you really meet God that night? I usually smile softly. Because the truth is difficult to explain. Maybe I met God. Maybe I met a messenger. Maybe I met wisdom itself. Or maybe, for the first time in my life, I finally met my own soul. But one thing is certain. That night changed me forever. Before that night, I believed meeting God meant escaping ordinary life. Now I understand something different. God can be found within ordinary moments when the heart becomes awake. In morning sunlight, in forgiveness, in stillness, in prayer, in compassion, in gratitude, in truth, and sometimes in the quiet silence of a sleepless night when a tired soul finally whispers honestly, "God, are you there?" Because the moment a heart sincerely begins searching, the journey has already begun. And maybe that is the greatest secret of all. Humans spend their lives trying to reach God, but all along, God has been gently trying to reach them. So if you ever wish to meet God, begin simply. Sit quietly sometimes, watch the sunrise. Speak honestly, forgive someone, help someone hungry, protect your peace. Put your hand over your heart and breathe slowly. Thank God for one more day. And remember this: you do not need to become perfect before approaching God. You only need to become sincere, because sincere hearts eventually find what they are searching for. And perhaps one quiet night, when the world becomes silent and your soul finally becomes still, you too may feel that mysterious peace. The kind of peace that cannot be purchased, cannot be explained, cannot be forced, only experienced. The peace that softly whispers to the soul, "You were never alone."